Most people know the name Michael Jackson, but Jaafar Jackson, that's the name everyone's suddenly Googling. He's not just another random actor cast to play a legend. He's Michael's own nephew, the son of Jermaine Jackson, one of the original members of the Jackson 5. And that makes this role hit way closer to home than anyone expected. Jaafar grew up surrounded by music. He's been singing, dancing, and performing since he was a kid. But here's the twist. He's never really been in the spotlight like his uncle. While the rest of the Jackson family carried the weight of the dynasty, Jaafar kept things low-key, carving out his own path quietly. So when the announcement dropped that he'd be playing Michael in a full-scale Hollywood biopic, fans were shocked. Some people loved the idea, saying who better to capture MJ's spirit than someone who shares his bloodline. Others weren't so sure, pointing out that Jaafar's never had a major acting credit before this. But even before the trailer came out, people who'd seen him on set said the resemblance was uncanny. Same movements, same tone, same gentle confidence in front of the camera. Even Michael's own mother, Catherine Jackson, reportedly got emotional seeing him in costume, saying Jaafar truly embodies her son. And that's when people started paying attention, because this wasn't just about playing a role, it was about preserving a legacy. One that's been both celebrated and clouded in controversy for decades. But stepping into the shoes of one of the most iconic entertainers in history isn't just a career move. For Jaafar, it's personal, and that's what makes what happens next even more intense. When the first teaser for Michael dropped, the internet lost its mind. Within 24 hours, it racked up over 116 million views, breaking records for a music biopic trailer. And honestly, it's easy to see why. From the very first frame, you can feel the scale of this thing. The lighting, the sound design, the energy. It's not just a movie, it's a resurrection. We see Jaafar stepping onto the stage, flashing that signature shy smile before the lights explode behind him. Then it hits. The moonwalk. The moment fans saw it, they swore they were looking at Michael himself. But behind all that, Glitz is a seriously ambitious production. The film's directed by Antoine Fuqua, the same guy behind Training Day and Emancipation. Produced by Graham King, who also made Bohemian Rhapsody, the Oscar-winning Queen biopic. The script comes from John Logan, who wrote Gladiator and Skyfall. So yeah, this isn't some fan project. This is Hollywood-level legacy work, and that's the key word, legacy. From the start, everyone involved made it clear this movie isn't just about recreating the hits or rehashing scandals. It's about telling Michael's story beyond the music, his creative obsession, his loneliness, and his impossible dream to be the greatest entertainer the world has ever seen. The trailer doesn't waste a second. One shot shows him accepting a Grammy, another performing in front of screaming fans in the rain, and then a quiet scene. Jaafar as Michael sitting in a dimly lit studio while Quincy Jones, played by Kendrick Sampson, says, "Keep those feet still, my man." It's a rare glimpse of the artist before the magic. Vulnerable, focused, human. People who've seen early cuts say Jaafar's transformation is so convincing, even crew members got emotional during filming. They weren't just watching an actor, they were watching a Jackson become Michael again. But here's the thing, while the trailer lit up social media, what most people don't know is how hard it was to even get this film made. Because behind the scenes, there were problems, big ones, and the deeper you look, the more chaotic it gets. For a movie this massive, you'd think the hardest part would be living up to Michael Jackson's legacy. But the real battle, it happened behind the scenes. Michael was first announced back in early 2023 with huge hype, a definitive portrait of the king of pop, they said. But soon after, things started to get messy. The production hit multiple delays, reshoots, and rumors of internal tension between producers and the Jackson family. The release date slipped from 2025 to April 2026, and every push sparked new speculation. Industry insiders whispered that the delays weren't just about production schedules. Some scenes reportedly got reworked after legal advisors warned that certain storylines might reopen old wounds. The kind of allegations that have followed Michael's legacy for years. Officially, the studio called it creative refinement. Unofficially, it sounded a lot like damage control. At one point, even director Antoine Fuqua was rumored to be under pressure from both the studio and the Jackson estate, each side wanting a different version of the truth. Fuqua's vision was reportedly raw and emotional, while the estate preferred something more respectful and celebratory. It became a constant balancing act, art versus image, truth versus tribute. Then came the controversy around how much of Michael's darker chapters would be shown. Some fans demanded full honesty. Others warned that focusing too much on it would disrespect his genius. The debate flooded social media, turning every leak into a firestorm. And just when it looked like things were stabilizing, there were reports of late-stage script changes and long reshoots in Los Angeles. Sources said entire sequences, especially those dealing with Michael's court battles and reclusion in the 2000s, were quietly rewritten. The word controversial doesn't even begin to cover it. Still, through all of it, Jaafar stayed silent. No drama, no interviews, just total focus. But everyone in the industry knew the truth. This movie had already survived more chaos off camera than most films ever do on camera. And that chaos didn't stop there, because even within the Jackson family, not everyone agreed this movie should exist. And what happened next split the family in two. If you thought the behind-the-scenes drama was intense, the real tension started inside the Jackson family itself. When word broke that Jaafar, Michael's own nephew, would be stepping into the spotlight to play his uncle, it sounded poetic. A Jackson bringing the king of pop back to life. Fans saw it as destiny, but not everyone in the family shared that excitement. While Michael's mother, Catherine Jackson, gave the project her blessing, even saying that Jaafar embodies her son, other members stayed noticeably quiet, and that silence started to raise eyebrows. Then, months later, Michael's daughter, Paris Jackson, finally spoke up. In a series of subtle but pointed posts, she hinted that she wasn't involved in the film at all, and didn't appreciate how her father's story was being controlled by the estate. She never mentioned names directly, but fans knew exactly what she meant. That statement sent shockwaves through the fan base. Because if Michael's own children weren't behind the project, then whose version of the truth was it telling? Even Prince Jackson, who had originally shown public support for Jaafar's performance, went quiet after the teaser dropped. Some interpreted that as respect. Others saw it as a quiet step back from a family project that was getting far too complicated. Behind closed doors, insiders described the atmosphere as tense. One side of the family saw Michael as a celebration, a way to remind the world of his music, his art, his brilliance. The other side feared it would turn into a polished rewrite, trimming away the raw, painful parts of who Michael really was. And that's what made Jaafar's position so difficult. He wasn't just playing his uncle, he was walking a tightrope between legacy and loyalty. Every move he made would be compared, dissected, and judged not only by fans, but by family. Still, Jaafar stayed silent, focused, and professional. No public feuds, no cryptic comments, just quiet confidence. Like someone who knows his work will speak louder than any argument ever could. But even with all the family drama and creative conflict, one question still lingered. What story is this movie really telling? Because when the trailer finally revealed its tone, people noticed something. What it didn't show was almost louder than what it did, and that's where the mystery deepens. When the official synopsis dropped, fans thought they were getting the full story. It promised to explore Michael Jackson's life beyond the music, tracing his rise from the Jackson 5 to becoming the most famous entertainer on Earth. Sounds honest, right? But after the teaser hit, a lot of people noticed something strange. It looked perfect, maybe a little too perfect. The trailer showed the electrifying performances, the Grammys, the fans screaming in the crowd. Every shot was golden light and slow motion glory. But what it didn't show, the controversies, the scandals, the loneliness that followed him off stage. Critics immediately picked up on it. Some called the movie a family-sanctioned fantasy, while others argued it was too soon, or maybe too cautious, to tell a story that real. After all, Michael's legacy has always lived in the space between brilliance and controversy, between genius and pain, and skipping that tension might make the story feel incomplete. Reports from insiders say those darker parts were originally in earlier drafts, scenes that dealt with the intense media scrutiny, the isolation, and the accusations that haunted Michael in his later years. But somewhere between rewrites and reshoots, they vanished. The studio insists the film isn't erasing the truth, but rather focusing on his creative journey. Still, fans can't help but ask, how can you tell Michael Jackson's story without confronting the shadows that shaped him? Because that's where the real human story lives. It's the duality that made him fascinating. A man who could command the world on stage but crumble when the lights went out. That contrast, the genius, and the vulnerability is what people want to understand. And if the film avoids it, it risks becoming a tribute, not a truth. But maybe that's the point. Maybe this isn't just a biopic. Maybe it's the Jackson family's attempt to reclaim Michael's image after decades of distortion. And whether you love that or question it, one thing's for sure, the movie knows exactly what it's doing, because behind every frame that glitters, there's a choice about what not to show. And that choice might just change how the world remembers him. So here's the big question. Why does this movie matter so much? Because Michael isn't just another Hollywood biopic. It's a battle over legacy, image, and truth. For fans who grew up moonwalking across their living rooms, this film isn't just nostalgia, it's personal. It's a chance to see Michael's magic come alive again, not through impersonators or documentaries, but through his own bloodline. When Jaafar walks on screen, it's not an actor pretending to be a legend, it's a nephew carrying his family's history on his shoulders. That's something no script can fake. But beyond the sentiment, there's something much bigger happening here. The Michael biopic is setting the stage for how the next generation will remember the King of Pop. Think about it. Millions of Gen Z viewers who never saw Michael perform live will meet him for the first time through this movie. Whatever story it tells becomes the version that sticks. That's power, and that's why every decision, every frame, every lyric, every scene they cut or keep matters. So what should viewers watch for? First, pay attention to how the film balances light and shadow. Does it celebrate the legend while avoiding the man behind the fame? Or does it dare to explore the cost of being the greatest? Second, look for Jaafar's performance itself. Early reviewers say it's eerily convincing. Not just visually, but emotionally. The tiny gestures, the soft-spoken tone, the way he stares at the crowd before a show. It's not imitation, it's immersion. And finally, notice how the movie feels about Michael Jackson, the person. Does it show him as a victim of fame, a perfectionist, a misunderstood genius, or just an icon wrapped in myth? Because that answer will tell you whether this film is rewriting his legacy or revealing it. Either way, one thing's undeniable. This movie is going to start conversations, and maybe reopen old ones too. The world's divided on who Michael Jackson was, but everyone agrees on one thing. There's never been anyone like him, and now, through his own family's eyes, we might finally see him again. Not just as a superstar, but as a man. In the end, Michael isn't just a movie, it's a mirror, one that reflects how the world still sees Michael Jackson 15 years after his death. Through Jaafar Jackson, we're not just watching an actor play a legend, we're watching a nephew resurrect his uncle's soul. Every movement, every note, every moment of silence carries the weight of family, fame, and the unspoken question: who was the real Michael Jackson? This film could become the ultimate tribute, a love letter to a man who changed music forever, or it could spark a whole new wave of debate about the truth behind the myth. Because no matter how perfectly choreographed or beautifully filmed it is, the one thing that can't be scripted is how people feel about Michael Jackson. Maybe that's the beauty of it. Maybe this movie isn't about rewriting history. Maybe it's about letting the world decide what his story really means. And whether you see him as a visionary, a mystery, or a misunderstood genius, one thing's certain: Michael Jackson's impact hasn't faded, it's evolved. Through Jaafar, it's alive again. So when Michael hits theaters in April 2026, don't just watch it as another biopic, watch it as a moment in pop culture history. The moment when one generation tried to bring another back to life. Because if Jaafar's performance is half as powerful as the legend he's portraying, the world isn't ready for what's coming next. What do you think? Will this film finally show the real Michael Jackson, or just the version the world wants to remember? Drop your thoughts below.